All right, well, it's 4 o'clock. Shall I call the meeting to order? We're all ready? Okay. I call the meeting to order. Let's stand and pledge the allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of America,
To the republic that stands,
stands one nation under God, liberty and justice for all.
Zoom doesn't like it when we all speak at once, does it?
No, it gets really confused.
All right, may I have a motion, please, to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Paul
I second.
and Isetta. In order, say yes if you're approved. John,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
Tina,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Isetta,
Yes.
and me, all approved. Thank you. We're ready to continue. All right, the presentation for special education.
So I'm going to be doing that. Kelly was unable to be here tonight. Oh, I can't share my screen, Tina. Can you make it so I can? It says the host disabled participant screen sharing.
I don't know what everyone. Can you share now?
It's doing something.
There.
Mm-hmm.
Can they do anything?
There we go.
Megan, when I click share the screen, can you do
No, it just shares your screen. I can share my presentation to you if you want to share on your screen. Would that be the easiest?
I think so. And focus on the way.
I just sent it to you if we have to do it that way.
I don't know how to do it.
Go ahead. Try now, Megan.
Yay. All right.
Oh, hooray.
You can all see that okay?
Looks good.
All right, so I know some questions had come up just regarding some of our out-of-district placements and costs and what would need to happen in order to be able to bring some students back. So Kelly and I worked on a presentation together just to talk a little bit about the process and the data around special education students. I can't see you all right now because it took over my screen and you're just in a tiny little square. So if you have any questions as we go through, feel free to speak up. There'll also be a time for questions at the end. Just if you make a motion or something, I won't be able to see that. All right, so here's just a little bit of information through the years, as the past few years of where we stand with our number of students with disabilities. You can see our new referrals there, how many have come in per year, our classification rate through the years, how many out-of-district placements we've had, students that we have brought back to district that were either placed in a BOCES placement or a consortium placement. And a consortium placement is a group of districts that we all work together so that we can send students to each other's districts, since the districts in the region are all relatively small. So we have different special education programs that we offer, and then we can share students between for a cost for each other. And then we do have students that move in with already having an out-of-district placement on their IEP, and so that gives you some of that information there. It's also important to note that students do move in and out of the district throughout the year, so we base our numbers on as far as percentages and that sort of thing on our beds day, because that's the best thing we can do to compare year to year. That's in October, about usually the first Wednesday, I think it is. And that just gives us a solid number to go by. So this next piece is just showing you some of the things that are in place for prevention. As students, first are born, it's actually our duty to try to find any students who may have needs. And this starts right from birth and it goes all the way through age 21. It's the district's responsibility for child find. And then if students are having some difficulty with delays, when they're under 3 years of age, they can use intervention services. And both early intervention services and preschool special education services, students can qualify for those, but those services are really given by the county.
Okay.
The school district works with them in order for the students to get the services they need when they are that young. When they get to school age, we do the MTSS process at the building level, and that's really multi-tiered with support. So we look at the different areas of these students have, and this year, Kelly and the assistant principals have really worked hard on a team called the Contributing Factors team. And what they do is focus on students and work on preventative support for students' academic behavior and attendance needs. One thing that is important to know about prevention is that with the conversations we've had with budget and with the different positions that we may not be refilling, none of those positions will directly affect prevention for students. So that's actually a really good thing at keeping those programs intact. So I talked about MTSS, the multi-tiered systems of support, and this just kind of shows you exactly what that is. So very quickly, if you look at the top, tier 1 is really what all students will get. You need really solid tier 1 instruction so that students can make progress and learn. And about 80% of students should be able to make an expected progress based on that tier 1 instruction. For some students, they need a little bit more support. That would be tier 2. They say that's about 15%. And that's just some extra small group support and interventions to help them with areas that they have. And for students that doesn't help to make the progress we would want, then there's tier 3, which is more individualized and customized, and that should be around 5%. So if we think about one of our out-of-district students, They would go through each of these 3 tiers of support, and thinking about one specifically, his behavior and social emotional support took a large amount of time from this principal and assistant principal, and really affected the educational learning of environment of other students. But even though the student had been classified, they still will work through all these systems of support and get interventions along the way. When we do have a student who is classified, it's our obligation to look at the least restrictive environment. And so starting at the bottom, you would see that that's general education. Those are our tier 1 students who are able to learn and make progress in the general education setting. And then as you go up the triangle, you get more supportive and more restrictive. So we start at the bottom and then we move towards the top as students need more and more support and are not making progress in the general education curriculum. At every annual review meeting, we look at where they are and try to see if we can head back down the triangle if they're doing well. And if we're not, we may need to move up the triangle for more restrictive. So thinking about that same student that I used as an example, he started off in the general education population. By middle school, the student was given direct special ed support for academic needs. And although those needs were addressed, the student still struggled with behavior, and different levels of support were given. Each year, his needs were reviewed at the annual review meeting. Functional behavior assessment was completed. He had a behavior intervention plan. He had increased counseling support, and accommodations and modifications were provided within the district. So thinking, going more restrictive, why would we not have a student in district? There are some things that out of district providers and placements can provide that we don't have. So our day treatment programs, they come with medication management and counseling. It's built right into a really therapeutic setting. They have behavior specialist support. They have some support rooms with trained support people who are there to man them when students do need to take a break for their safety. They have greater or equal than 1-to-1 support in class. So in a lot of these settings, there's the teacher and very few students, and a lot of students have aides as well. And then there's the residential placement, which is the most restrictive, and that's where all the needs are met in one setting. Student lives there, they go to school there, and they have intensive therapeutic setting right there with them for 24 hours a day. So thinking about the student that I'm kind of using as an example, the student needed more individual behavior and social emotional support that our district could provide, which then led them to the out of district placement. This gives you information of our current numbers and grade level by out of district. Just to give you a little bit of idea, the Finger Lakes Secondary School, Red Jacket Education Center, and Wayne Education Center are more supports for social emotional needs. Whereas we look at Mid Lakes, typically sending students there who are on the autistic spectrum. Monroe 1 is typically a more intensive behavior support and social emotional support, and also through Hillside we get that. And each placement really has its own specialty. In order to get to any of these placements, there's an extensive referral process. The placements have a committee that goes through all the paperwork to make sure that everything really has been tried in the district with the functional behavior assessment, behavior intervention plans. And then there is a visit by the family along with our director of special education to really make sure it's going to meet the students' needs. Because we really don't want students bouncing around from placement to placement. If we're going to be sending them out of district, we want it to be the right fit the first time, whenever possible. So this is some examples of what a student cost might look like, just to help you see what goes into each program. So you can see there's the school year cost, but there's also the therapy cost. And then extended school year is the summer school program that our students do qualify for, students with disabilities, when they have such intense needs. So thinking about the student that I've been using as an example, that student would be more around like a number 2 type cost, which is considered somewhat of a lower cost when you comparatively to the others. But if you were to think about looking at number 1, there's music therapy involved. So if we were to bring some of these students back, we'd really have to look at, do we have enough related service providers to provide the related service time, the therapy time? We don't have our own music therapist, so that would have to be provided. And we would have to hire a contract through BOCES for some of those services. And so programs that already have someone going there for multiple students provide those services, that's usually how we can end up having a lower cost for that rather than trying to have someone come right out for just one or two students that might have those needs in our district. So when we're looking at bringing students back to district, again, we go back to that continuum of least restrictive environment and really seeing, what a student's needs are. It's important to note that some students, even in those restrictive settings, need a one-to-one aid. So bringing a student back, we would replicate that with a one-to-one aid because we're bringing them back with the same supports that they would have. We want it to be very similar. So that would be a cost of an additional staff person to be an aid. And we really want to make sure that we have everything in place to make it equally supportive as the out-of-district. I know it's a lot of information, but are there any questions at this time?
I have just a couple on that. Thank you for putting that together. I appreciate it. And thank you for everything that we do for our students and offer them for their educational needs. My biggest question with our outplacement students in our special education department in general is, why are we so high, so much further above the average similar district when it comes to the cost per student? It just seems like you went back to 17, 18, I think. Back in 11 and 12, starting there, we were pretty much on par with the average of being around $25,000 a student. But since then, it's gone up quite a bit. Starting, it looks like in around 13, 14, where we were 22% higher. 14, 15, 15, 16, they were both about 25 to 30% higher. In 16, 17, it went to 55%, and this year we're at 41% higher than the average. So I just wasn't sure what's so unique about our district that those costs are so different from similar districts.
I was looking to see if Scott's
I can help answer that.
mine was going to, but I didn't want to interrupt you.
I think, like most districts, one of the things that happens with instituting an MTSS process is it tends to lower the percentage of students that are classified, typically removing the students that are on the fringes of being classified from that process. Those tend to be the least expensive students that are classified. At the same time, if you have a high number of out-of-district placements, then that's going to increase the cost of those students. You have the number of having, say, 7 students placed at the Wayne Education Center is a high number of students for your population. But I can assure you that if they're there, they belong there, because the goal of any of the BOCES placements, I know from my experience, success is returning a student back to their own school district, not keeping them there. So I know that if those students were in a position to be returned to the district, they would be, that would be the success.
I have one question. When we talked on the previous slide about one-to-one teacher aid, I think it was like we call it. Are they available? I know we've had a struggle trying to get special education teachers in the past.
We have been able to hire aides as we've needed them this year. It seems to depend on the year if we're able to find them or not. It's not a position that you need a certificate for. So it's not, like a teaching assistant or a teacher where you have to have certification. It tends to be, we usually can find people within the district that are interested in serving in those roles.
Again, what's the incoming, next year's kids coming into kindergarten would look like? As far as special needs.
I honestly don't know that. When I was the director of special education, I would go out and do those visits to preschools to really get a good handle on that. And I ran those preschool meetings, but since I'm removed from that process, I can't speak to that, but I'm sure Kelly would be able to provide that in her next report if you are interested in that.
It's probably consistent with every other year.
Yeah, I mean, I know the cohort is small, so I would guess that there would be a proportionate number of students, smaller as far as who's coming in with the disabilities already. But they also go through a process of transition from CPSE preschool to CSC, and they have to, in order to qualify for special ed services as a school age student, you have to kind of meet different criteria. So it's hard to know exactly who will definitely.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just had
Izetta?
I just wanted to make sure that I was still on the right page. I know it used to be if you were a preschooler with a disability, when you left preschool and came into kindergarten, that disability kind of went with you and you had to have a CSE meeting for that child to declassify them. Is that still the case?
So when you are a CPSE student, you are able to actually exit services by meeting your goals and making enough progress. So when students come, they only are referred to the Committee on Special Education if they show that they're still really struggling to a certain degree, or if they are recommended for preschool summer services, then it's an automatic recommendation to the CSE, and then the CSE determines whether or not they qualify as a school age student.
Okay. So basically, it is still the same. If they're declassified at pre-CSE, then they come in as a regular student.
Yeah.
Okay.
Megan, I saw the classification rate is at 17%. Are they still trying to keep you around 12?
So there isn't any anything that really like flags that anymore. There's different indicators they look at, but that hasn't been one recently that comes up as something that they worry about as much.
Okay, that's good then.
Yeah, that is good.
Thanks.
Jason, did you understand did you get an answer to your question that was that satisfactory?
Yeah, I mean, if that's the way that we are, it sounds like it's a program. Is this a different program than other schools run? And is that what I was hearing, Scott, or no?
No, not at all. The school district doesn't run a special education program. They provide the needs of the IEP.
Okay.
And so there's various ways to do that. At a certain point, it becomes either very ineffective or inefficient to do that internally. That's why students go out of the district. The one piece I forgot that I was going to mention in my answer to you, though, Jason, was that number of students that is transferred in with out-of-district placements is significant. I believe that's, if I remember, almost 10 over the last 3-year period. Each of those out-of-district placements is a significant cost. That in and of itself, without any movement out of the district, would be significant. Those are the budget killers, as Bob knows, that you have 3 or 4 students come in with very high needs in terms of that. You certainly are going to take care of them, but they are a significant impact on the budget. I don't know, Bob, if you have anything to add with that.
Do we see this trending, like, in what direction do we see this trending for future years? Because I'm just curious, is it trending down due to the grade level of students and what's following them, or is it going the opposite direction?
From what we've seen, students' needs as far as mental health and social emotional have been getting worse and worse over the years.
You have to remember, I think that the numbers that you see for comparison are averages. The state is an average. We happen to be on the high end because we have more students with greater needs than another district does. Each district pays for their own. It's kind of unfair to taxpayers in a district like ours where we have a large percentage of children with high needs. But that averages out to other districts that have perhaps lower needs. So when you see the state average given a number, we're on the high end. There are other districts that are on the low end. And I think to decide why our district is on that high end, we have to look at the demographics, and it would really be quite an elaborate study to figure out why we have students with high needs beyond some of the other districts. Tina?
That's
Were you
not,
gonna-
that really wasn't what I was comparing it to. The comparison was similar rural districts, which was supposed to have
Yeah,
a similar financial base and
yeah, I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, it's, Jason, it's not unreasonable for the board to have this as a goal or a target area, for lack of a better term, for Mike as he enters as the next superintendent, to continue to review this because of that difference in those totals. But I think through this process, it was helpful for me to hear from Kelly and Megan about the process that was used and the placements, the individual placements. But again, that's something to continue to focus on.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on then to the bus driver recruitment presentation.
Okay, I will try to share something here. Had a couple people working on putting together just a little brief PowerPoint, just showing kind of what we've done over the years and what we're doing going forward. I apologize if there are any errors, etc., because I got it about 10 minutes to 4. So as you know, we've struggled for quite a while with bus driver recruitment. It's probably been, I would say, 3 years or more since we've been fully staffed. So we are constantly advertising. We hit the lake shore in Wayuga often, as we pretty much need local people to help us fill these jobs. And you can see kind of the schedule of what we've done this year.
I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm not seeing that.
You're not seeing it?
No, do you others see
No.
it?
All right, bear with me a sec. Let me try again. Is it up now?
Yeah. Yeah, great, thank you.
Okay, sure. So as I was saying, we use Lakeshore News and Wayuga for advertisements. This school year alone, we've really been hitting it hard since December. This is an example of one of the ads that we've run. And I'm just going to show you a couple others that we have used over the years a couple of times. We're constantly recruiting. This is not a problem that's unique to North Rose-Wolcott. It's not a problem that's unique to the state even. It's a national problem. and just a couple of the different ads we've run at times. And as I was saying, we haven't been fully staffed probably for a good 3 years or more. This is a new ad that we're going to be running. We worked with City BOCES, our PR people there. Took a little feedback from some suggestions, actually, even from some board members about really trying to make it more of a recruitment. And we try to show some of the enhanced things here. For example, you know, we do highlight the training for it is free. There's the option to get additional hours. So those people that, you know, want to pick up extra time, earn more money, they have that opportunities. And that we do give health and dental insurance. They get paid sick time, paid personal time. They can be part of New York State retirement. And minimum starting rate of pay is $17 an hour. That ad will be running very soon in Wayuga, and in the Lakeshore and the Shopper. We've also, over the years, there's a sample of a couple different flyers that drivers have just kind of handed out to people around town or whatever. And actually at the last fall's elementary back to school picnic, we distributed flyers there, trying to get many times, you know, there are parents that are looking for a part-time job, and they're able to be involved with what's going on in the students' lives too. So we did distribute those. And we've worked on a new flyer, which may not be in this version of it, but we've added some more color, tried to highlight some of those other things. And we're still working on a plan as to how we're going to distribute those, maybe put them around town at some of the local places. We actually even did a radio advertisement. Actually, that wasn't fall of 2019, it was fall of 2018, I apologize. I'll let you listen to that real quickly.
I'm not hearing it.
No.
No.
Nobody can hear it?
No.
I can hear it great.
Oh, is it nice?
Okay, well, maybe through Zoom, you can only share visual. So we ran an ad. It was actually joint with Clyde Savannah. We split the cost of it, and it, you know, advertising, upbeat music, trying to get some extra applicants that way. Unfortunately, at that time, we did not get a single applicant in the near future after that. But it is something we can pursue again down the road. There's the new flyer that we're going to get printed up, and we'll distribute those around. We could even consider putting them in some of our mailers. I'm actually trying to go through budget newsletter layout right now. And there may, if we have an extra page, we may even be able to include this in there. That would be a way to get this information out to everyone in our district. You may have seen, we had a bus sitting at Florentine back in 2018 with a banner on it. It also was moved around the district a little bit. We had at the corner of 5th Road and 104, as well as the corner of 414 in Clinton. We are in the process of getting some new banners made up. They look like this. And we're going to make sure we have at least 2 out there at a time in the community. And I've been in touch with the new owner of the Florentine Hendrick Elementary building, and he's obliged that we're able to still park a bus out there with a banner to solicit some applications there, as well as we'll put it on the corner of Route 104 and 5th Road again. So that's where we are at this point. As you know, it is a struggle in our transportation budget when we have to outsource things. But we're hopeful that, maybe out of all this bad going on, there may be some people who currently are out of a job, and they may think that this might be a good opportunity. So we're going to try to work towards getting some training training done over the summer so that we can potentially have some new people on board.
Bob,
Yes.
the new ads and the things that you're doing really are eye-catching. I think will, certainly attract a lot more attention. I
Well,
think
that's
it's-
what we're hoping.
It's a great effort.
Yeah, we, like I said, we involved City BOCES in our team there with their graphic designers, and 2 or 3 different times they sent things back and forth, and we made some additions to them. I think one time it came through and it just said hiring, but it didn't say what the position was. But I think we've got versions that we're pleased with, and we want to get out there and push hard between now and September.
Sounds good.
Yes.
Yeah, I really like the new flyers and the advertisements that are going in the paper. I kind of wish these banners said, "We need you," or "We need bus drivers," but still they're very colorful and they look good. A question.
Well,
I have,
the banners have not been printed yet. We might be able to add something to it. With the banner, we've got to have a little bit less information because we've got people driving by.
Yeah.
But sure, maybe some kind of a little, Uncle Sam, I want you or something. I'll follow up with City BOCES on that.
Okay, a question I have, and I see that we provide training, so that's great. What about the CDL? Is there a way that we can contract with a person so that if I wanted to get a CDL, the school would pay for it, but I would be on contract with the school for like a year or 2?
So we provide all the training to get you ready to go take your CDL. 100%. Then we don't actually hire the employee until they have the license.
Right.
And there's a couple different reasons for that. One of the biggest ones being actually with bus drivers, fingerprinting process is different than it is for the teachers, etc. And so we need them to get to that point where they can get their license and they can be fingerprinted through DOT so that we've got clearance. We can't employ someone prior to the fingerprint clearance.
Yeah, that makes good sense. Again, though, specifically, so we train them so that they can take the CDL, but isn't there a cost to take that test?
There is. I don't know exactly what that is. Our current configuration, we couldn't pay for that test. What we do is if someone is here, when they renew, we pay the renewal cost of their CDL.
Oh, good. Okay, thanks, Bob.
Sure.
Any other questions for Bob?
Bob, $17 an hour, Bob. What's that?
I'm sorry.
What's that pay top out at? I see that's starting at $17 an hour. But what do they have the opportunity to make? Maybe we could put that in there, burn up to,
Well, it depends at the time. So if someone comes with experience, just like as a teacher would or anything else, we would consider starting them higher than 17. There is a provision though that I can't bring anybody in at a rate higher than anybody who's been here 5 years. So that is kind of a moving target depending on who our current employees are at the time.
Yeah,
And that would only be with experience.
also, I noted on with Bob's presentation and also on the advertisements that, well, the minimum is 5 hours a day. There are ample opportunities. So if you wanted to earn significantly more, you can, with the athletic runs and different things after school.
Correct.
Bob, how much do the other districts offer for starting? Are we being competitive?
We are competitive. They range, but we are quite competitive. We are definitely above the average in our direct area. And actually, even as we've raised our starting rate, it hasn't increased a lot of applicants. There's one or two districts, not directly near us, but kind of on the other end of the BOCES that have gone up into the mid-20s, and they haven't seen increases either.
People just aren't available.
I wonder if that'll change with the economic situation we're currently in.
It very well may.
Thank you, good for you. Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah, one more question. I know that, of course, as you're advertising, that's just a general advertisement for bus drivers, and I understand that. Would there be a possibility to target specific routes, or does that just get entirely too hard?
I'm not sure what you mean by that, to target.
Okay, yeah, I'll elaborate. Do we have, like some of the special education students, do we have bus runs where just there are a few students that need to go from our district to somewhere else?
Sure, we actually have some runs as low as sometimes one person.
Yeah, that was fine. I was just wondering if you could recruit, hey, we need you to drive a person from here to there.
Unfortunately, we don't have that option. All the routes are listed and they are bid on by drivers according to seniority. That's by contract.
Okay, I didn't know that. Thank you.
Yeah.
okay. We'll move on to the next then, which is the big one, the budget. Bob, Scott, the budget.
All right, I'm going to see if I can put something up here again. So this is a summary of the information that had been sent to you regarding a recommendation for proposed budget. And the top just highlights what our revenue sources are and changes that we've seen since last year. We spent a lot of time in the past going over expenditures. While our overall state aid is down, and that's largely due to the decrease in building aid that we talked about a couple meetings ago. We have 2005 project that was financed and we were getting building aid on it. That building aid is done this year. In addition, some of the work we've had to cut and shift in the current project is giving us not as much aid as we originally had hoped. So our building aid is down. We talked about foundation aid being a major category of aid for us. That was frozen. And then we went in more detail before some of our BOCES aid, other category of goal aids are up and down. We are recommending a 1.9% increase in the tax levy, which nets $185,132. That would give a balanced budget. And highlighted down further on the page, a reminder that our tax levy limit, or the tax cap, would be an increase of 4.14%, which would have generated $403,000. I did run the numbers with a 1.9% increase on the levy. Some assumptions. Our current rate that we charge, and this is true value rate, depending on the town, it could be a little bit higher if they're not at 100% assessment. But our current tax rate this year was $14.65. If assessments stayed exactly as they are, generally that's not the case. But if they did, this would change our true value rate to $14.93. What we've seen with the graphs that I've shown you before is that over time, even when we have had some increases in the levy, most of the years our rate has still actually gone down or stayed very close to flat. That's due to usually a little new assessment every year. if we, like I said, though, if we take the assumption that there's no change in assessment, that could be the potential tax rate. And then I've done estimates after STAR, what that would mean as an increase on a $50,000 assessed home or a $100,000 assessed home, the annual amount, or if you were making an escrow payment, what it would be per month. Okay, Scott, is there anything else you wanted to add?
More so to answer any questions at this time based on what we've shared over the last couple of meetings, as well as the information that went out to you on Friday.
Is there anything you guys are going over, or is this, I just don't want to ask a question and then you go over it 2 minutes from now, you know what I mean? Or is this pretty much the gist of it? Hello?
Did you want a specific question, you mean, Jason?
Oh, I'm sorry. I must have lost my internet. The screen froze for a minute. I just wasn't sure if there was more to the presentation. Can I actually wait if I have a question, or if this was the end?
No, at this.
Time to answer the question.
Okay. My big, I guess, in having the people that we have in place makes it a lot easier decision, but my biggest worry is that we've worked for the last few years to become a school of good standing. And with the cuts associated with the budget, do you feel comfortable, Scott, that it's not gonna hold us back from continuing to grow educationally with our students?
Yes, based on enrollment numbers, we didn't remove any interventionist assistance, but even with that, because of enrollment decreases, eventually the amount or the number of interventionists may not be needed to be as great to have that same impact. And so I think over time, potentially with attrition, you could continue to reduce if need be over the next couple of years if budget woes hit, and still be okay. Done a nice job of improving the curriculum, the professional development, and the pieces around that. And so I think given the current number of interventionists, you're fine at this point. And like I said, this isn't just my opinion. I'm basing it on the feedback that I'm getting from the other administrators in terms of their support for that. It's not necessarily what I think based on my stay here for 3 months so far. It's based on their long-term kind of experiencing it.
Thank you.
I think a lot of our questions were answered between the last meeting and this meeting. Thank you for allowing us to ask some questions so that you could give us that feedback. I think we have a really good understanding of where we are and what you've done and your rationales for presenting those numbers.
Can I ask
I
questions?
think the 1.9, your recommendation is right on target.
Can I ask a question about staff training? Hello?
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, I guess that'd be for Megan more, but we're asking for a cut in the amount of money for staff training. That's critical in keeping up the training of teachers and staff members that then therefore directly relate to student education. Are we still in good shape for that?
We are, so in talking about what should be or should not be cut, Scott had a nice conversation with me, helping me realize that really shouldn't be an area that we cut, because we are going to have to really put a good amount into training teachers in how to keep on moving forward with this remote learning piece, because we can't guarantee what's coming. So we actually have plans in place right now that we're working with teachers starting the next couple weeks, and hopefully carrying this out through summer to be able to give people the time to get prepared for if this does go on into the fall, or if we do have to, come back to school and then leave school again, to do as much as we can to be prepared for that. So I do believe we're in good shape with funds for training for teachers.
Great, that's very critical, I think.
Yeah, I thought that was the one area that we decided we could not cut, was professional development. That's flat, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I just wanted to make sure.
So, Scott, we have, you're asking us right now to give a consent to the amount and the tax rate so that it can be inserted in the consent agenda. Is that what we're doing? Is that what you want from us right now?
We need a roll call.
It's essentially to be able to use that the expense budget amount that Bob showed on that list. Bob, if you could bring that up again. So what we'd be looking for is the expenditure budget of $31,749,458 to be inserted under 5A, where it says spending plan in the amount of, there's just a dollar sign there now. And so we would insert that amount there. And then that's all we'd be asking for. You could do that now, or you could do it later on, or do the actual, adopt the resolution later on. But that's really what we wanted to do with this presentation, is ensure that you were ready to put that number on the 5A resolution.
And then does the, under the B part, the tax report card, that would be the percent of increase go there, or what goes there that we've needed to add something?
But you go ahead, Bob.
The tax report card is an actual document that we have to file with the state. And that outlines our proposed budget compared to our current budget. Off the top of my head, it does projections of fund balance, information on our reserves, information on our tax levy limit. It has all that information, and we have to file that in the state within 24 hours of when the board acts.
Okay, so then you fill it in based on the
Yes,
approval of A.
Yes, I filled it in based on that budget that was presented.
Okay.
But much of that information is going to be there regardless. The amounts of reserves and that sort of thing. Really, the only decision making that changes that is what's the expenditure budget.
I have a couple questions.
Yes, Paul.
I just want to make sure. I think we've got this covered, but we are already pulling like what, $485 out of reserve funds?
About 485, appropriating up to 485 out of reserves and 250 out of appropriated fund balance.
Right. So we really are dipping into our reserves already. This isn't flat. We're actually, again, dipping into our bank account. And then the second question I have is, and I believe this is correct, but again, I just want to ask the question. We've captured all of the expected, as best we can, projected savings from the closing of the school this year. Correct?
When you say capture, we've captured it as far as,
Including in our current budget.
You mean Leavenworth?
that doesn't have anything to, this year's savings don't have anything to do with next year's budget.
It's no longer ours.
You mean, Paul, do you mean Leavenworth or Florence?
I believe Paul means the closing of the school in March.
Right, I mean, we've saved some money on fuel, we've saved some money on heating.
Right, so that goes into our projections of what we'll have with our reserves for the end of the year. And as well as funding that $250,000 of appropriated fund balance for a one-time expenditure for next year.
Yeah, that's what
You muted yourself.
we've already taken that all into, yeah, I see, thanks. We've already taken all that into consideration.
Yes, best estimates that we could do.
Yeah, thank you.
But of course, the closure did cost us money. It wasn't a freebie.
It did, and you know, I tried to run some real rough numbers, and that's all that they are, is real rough. I'm probably missing lots of stuff. There are assumptions made which could change tomorrow, but I was able to identify, and I got some input from other people, that there was maybe potentially about $250,000 we could potentially be saving. And the flip side was some added costs of about 50,000. So that would take it from 250 down to 2. And I have not factored in, we've got significant added costs with the way that the vote's going now. I haven't factored that in yet.
Are there expenses that teachers, in order to give instruction, are incurring that will be charged back to the district?
I don't believe there should be. Megan, would you add anything to that?
No.
I think the only thing that, I don't think this is where you're heading with this, but one of the pieces in terms of instruction that we have the extra charge for is the hotspots. That's costing us a monthly rate. That's not necessarily to be charged back by teachers, but that's an additional technology cost for us.
Yeah, our largest costs are technology, the hotspots, as well as just having to buy some additional Chromebooks and even laptops, just due to the amount of use that they're getting and being able to turn them around. For example, there's a lot of office staff that didn't have laptops before, and they can't use a Chromebook. They've got to have a laptop to use the VPN access. So we did have to buy some stuff there.
All right, back to the budget. Are we ready to give a verbal assent here to this proposal so that it can be put into the consent agenda for approval? Is there anyone who isn't ready to verbally give me a okay? Okay, then I'll, I guess what I'll ask is, will you accept the superintendent's recommendation of a budget for next year of $31,749,458? John?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes.
Tina?
Yeah.
Jason? Paul? I'm not hearing Jason or Paul, but I see your lips moving. I think you're saying yes.
Yes.
Yes, and I said it.
Yes.
Okay, good. Then we can put that number in the consent agenda under 5A. So that when we do the consent agenda, that would be there. Okay. As we move on, under reports and correspondence, we have a first read.
Wait a minute, I think you have to do the roll call. Approval
No,
of the real.
not until we get there, John. We're just
Oh, I thought we were
filling in the, I was just getting a verbal okay that we're all satisfied.
Okay.
Wasn't a motion.
Okay.
Under number 3, we have a first read with these. The ad hoc committee brought you one set of policies. It ended up that policies were much greater in number by the time we ended up. And rather than give you all of these at once, we broke it up, and some of these the policy committee had questions about, and they went back for Scott to deal with, or to even get back to Erie one with questions that we had. So now the policy committee under John's leadership is ready to present these to you. John, you want to say anything?
Yeah, it's been, that's exactly right. I think we started out with to do 3, and then we ended up with all these. So we did them, and it's been so long since I read them. I mean, a lot has happened since this time. So this is a first read, so if you have any questions, let us know, and we'll reread them again.
If you do have questions, I also have a printout that the policy committee worked with, and I have that in front of me that gives kind of an overview of either what changed or the issue was with the policy. So if you have one that you're concerned about, I can read that to you. Unless you have it, John. If you have it in front of you.
No, I don't. No, I don't.
Yes, and I just like
Right,
to say,
Paul.
between Friday afternoon and today, I've been so focused on the budget that I honestly have not read every one post. So
You
if
haven't. There's only 85 pages
Yeah,
there.
so-
Can't imagine why.
So I'd like to reserve the right to come back with questions in the future when I get up.
Of course, for the second read. Were there any?
I guess at that time it would help if we could take notes on them, so we could look at them in depth, which we've done before, so it's no big
You mean,
change.
if you have questions,
Yeah.
then let us know so that we can have the answer for you. And then if it's satisfactory, we can proceed with adopting it on the second read. And if it isn't, we'll pull that one for a second read at a later time, and we'll find out whatever it is we need to find out.
I'm not looking forward to it, but I imagine there will be a policy sooner or later
Okay,
on.
you know you love policy.
Yeah, there will be one coming out on virus, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. Probably several.
There might be one coming out on how to do a absentee ballot vote too.
Yes, yes.
Oh, yeah. All right. Then you have these, and we'll let you read them later. And now we move to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is through number 2 that we can do as a whole. Would that be correct, Tina? Tina's, oh, there she is. Tina, now in the consent agenda, I want to make sure we're doing it right. The motion is for number 1 and number 2. Right. Yep. Good. So a motion, please, to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
So move.
All right, I've got John and Linda. Discussion. Questions. All right, then we'll vote again with a yes, starting with John.
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
Tina,
Yeah.
Jason,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Izetta, and me, yes, so the motion is approved.
I would just like to add that we have two people retiring, and I really respect both of them and what their jobs have been through the years they've been here.
Indeed, yes.
Yeah.
And I see that, that Kent is going to stay with us a little bit longer and help us out till October. So, good. Okay, now we'll move on to number 5, which is the adoption of the 2020-2021 budget spending plan, which we filled in the amount of, I didn't fill it in, so whatever it was. 31. Yes, I think it is, yes. So a motion, please, to approve this.
And motion,
Izetta
I make a
and
motion.
I'll second.
Tina. Discussion? All right, Tina, I'll ask you to call the roll.
Linda,
Yes?
Linda,
Yes,
John,
Yes,
Tina,
Yes,
Jason.
Uh,
I'm sorry, what was that? Jason,
he's frozen again.
We're not hearing you, Jason.
he said,
Yes.
repeat.
thank you. Yeah. Paul,
Yes,
Izetta,
yes,
thank you, motion is carried.
Thank you. And now a motion, please, for the approval of the real property tax report card.
So
So
moved.
move. I've got Paul and John. Discussion? All right, Tina, I'll ask you to take the roll again.
Linda,
Yes?
Linda,
yes,
John,
Yes,
Tina,
Yes,
Jason,
Yes.
Paul,
yes,
Izetta,
yes,
thank you, motion is carried.
Good.
I thank you for all the work you've done on it, the administrative group, all of you, because it's been a lot of work and hassle and headaches, I'm sure. And I really feel that we probably know more about this budget than we have in prior years. So thank you very much for that.
thank you,
Yes,
Paul.
Ken, thank you for speaking for all of us. Paul?
So Scott, there's still a presentation, though, right, to the public?
We'll be doing the budget hearing. I believe we have the date set for the date of our next board meeting. And so we'll be, depending on what the time frame is for that board meeting, we'll be doing the budget hearing either right before or right after, which is just really a presentation of the budget and what goes into it, allowing people to ask questions.
Now, yeah, so how will they do that? Will they be able to send text in, or will they all be on Zoom, or how will people be able to ask questions? We have that
We'll
figured out.
probably use the chat feature, or if you see on the bottom of your screen.
Yeah.
That would be the best way that we can do that, to make sure that everybody gets a chance to have their question answered.
Great, thanks.
All right, a couple of housekeeping things. You probably saw the Cork County Association information on approving the bylaws and appointing the election of the officers. It was my intent that unless you had issues, that I would vote yes. considerable time was spent on the bylaws and on policy as well. But it's the bylaws that have to be approved by the members. Every school that's a member gets one vote. Not every member gets a vote. One school gets a vote. So hearing no disagreements, I will be voting yes. Did I hear something?
Do you want a motion to authorize you?
We did that in the consent agenda, and gave authorization to do that.
Okay, just checking.
Keeping us on task. Tina, did we have any visitors to our board meeting today?
Yes.
Ah, welcome 14 people. Glad to have you with us. At this time, we do have time to permit it. You know, if we spend a lot of time on the budget, we might not have had time, but we do, to proceed with some discussion. Something that I really wanted to do, because I was not, I didn't feel that I had good clarification. At our last, hello? Okay, at our last meeting.
Covered.
All right, as long as it's covered. We talked somewhat about the Community Relations Committee. Jason had said that based on a Facebook criticism, he was seeing a need for us to have a strong relationship with other local leaders. The discussion went on, if you remember, and these points were made. That it's the superintendent's job to find ways to increase or improve relationships with the community. That if the board wants to increase or improve relations with the community, the board should make it one of the superintendent's goals. And that would be an evaluation goal. And that the school board and local boards of government have different responsibilities, and the two are very different and independent from each other. And we talked about that we were, at least I had talked with Vicki about the goal setting process for the board, followed by goal setting with the superintendent at our summer retreat. But we talked about these things, but there was really no actual conclusion that I could pick up the phone and call Vicki and say, yes, this is what we were going to do. So I did want clarification on that from you. Is this indeed what you want to do? And the path you want to take?
Cinda?
I think it makes sense to pursue it in the workshop. You know, we have had discussion, but in the workshop, we certainly will be discussing what's important in goal setting. So to me, it makes sense to do it there at the workshop and goal development.
All right, Paul?
Yeah, we have a workshop on the 22nd, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Okay,
Yes.
so is that kind of, can we talk about, so when you said the retreat, are you referring to the 22nd?
We have
or
two
something?
retreats coming up, Paul.
Okay.
There's the one in May, at the end of May. And then there is the one in, it's not scheduled yet.
Yeah, sometime, okay.
In, you know, June or July, not June, July perhaps, hopefully July.
Okay, well,
Where we would then, that's where we would be putting our full focus on board goals, evaluating last year's goals, what we thought we did well, what we didn't do well, what we want to move on. And then the second part of that retreat would be bringing Michael in and saying, these are our goals as we see them. Now, let's develop your goal.
Well, I think as soon as applicable, we need to discuss with Michael how we interact as a board and what we lay on him and what we share as far as community relations. I think that's huge.
That's all part of the 22nd.
Okay, good. Well then,
Kind of getting together, getting our jobs straight, getting what we can expect from each other, and getting from Michael what he sees as what he wants to really understand and focus on and with our district.
yeah, and how do we support him in community relations will certainly be one of the top.
All relations, not just community, but always. Yeah. I guess I'd like to have a verbal yes from all of you then, so I know for sure that this is what we're going to do. I sometimes feel we have discussions and then we don't seem to come to a specific conclusion. A lot of opinions are expressed, but there's no actual conclusion. And I guess that's a failing of mine for not bringing us to that point. So if you are you, do you give your approval to me to continue with Vicki on setting the goal setting for that summer retreat?
Can you clarify, was that summer or the May 22nd one? Or both?
Goal setting would be actually sitting down and writing our goals out would be in the summer.
So July, okay.
The July meeting. Now, I don't normally do July because of Vicki can't schedule, it'll be August. And the first retreat is the one where we get together and clarify what we do, what Michael does, how we interact, how we're going to proceed as a team.
Well, are we talking about goals in general, or are we talking about community relations?
Yeah, I'm lost with that myself.
If you want community relations as part of the goals, yes.
I want to talk to him on the 22nd. I want to start on the 22nd.
You want to set as goals on the
I
22nd?
want to talk about community relations with our new superintendent starting on the 22nd.
22nd of May, Paul?
Yes.
Say it
And
again,
what do you
Jason.
want to achieve with that, Paul?
So again, I want to establish the relationship. How do we support Michael? How does he want us to support him? How do we participate with the community? Let's set the framework for that early on.
Well, there's a whole lot besides community involved with that.
Well, yes, yeah. Can I say something?
Yeah, sure.
Well, I think one of the things that we have to remember is the reorg meeting. What's the date of the reorg? July? The
First, second, I don't know.
It's the first meeting in July.
So if we decided that we did want to, or Michael, I think there's two parts to our conversation. And I think they're kind of getting intertwined. Michael's going to have some lots of opportunities to engage with the public. He's going to be excited. He's, meeting all sorts of new people. But I think what we need to figure out is how we as the board want to handle our relationship with the community. I'm not sure that Michael should be tasked with that, and maybe I'm wrong. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's a standpoint that we need to take for ourselves with things like we'll go back to responding to public comment at board meetings or public access at board meetings. those are the types of things that I think that are our responsibility to decide on. What's our relationship going to be, not necessarily the school district as a whole, but the Board of Education.
I hear what you're saying, but I still maintain that we are hiring, we hire one person, and that's the superintendent. And we leave it up to the superintendent to have certain duties, one of which is, in my mind, and I think in both of your minds, is community relations. But he should be taking the forefront in dealing with community. And you see, that's where we're going to have a subtle difference between, I think it's a great idea, but I'm also thinking about the kids in academics. I mean, there are other goals that we could be talking about, such as what happens to come back to school. There's going to be apprehension. There's going to be nervousness on the part of our parents and students and faculty members. And then when we get them back, how do we give them a good education? So those are all major goals, I think. And I think that's what we leave up to our new superintendent to come up with ideas and task him with taking a hand in that. It's not really, I don't believe it's, we have that as a major thrust of our efforts. I said major now, I didn't say none.
Yeah, I still think there's a partnership there. That I don't think it's strictly, we dump everything onto the superintendent for community relations. And all those other things you mentioned, John, you're spot on, of course.
But I don't think in your terms, we don't dump on the board community relations in total either. I mean, it does have to be the superintendent doing a lot of those things.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I say it would be nice to work on the partnership. How do we load share this?
That's exactly, okay, that's a good way to say it, yes.
And if I came across as if, once again, as if we were, or my intentions were for us to be doing things like boots on the ground type thing, that's not it at all. All the discussions that we were looking to have are policy related discussions, how we can improve communication and relationships with our community. It's not actually going out and doing it, it's brainstorming and putting together what we envision so that we can ask of the superintendent to put together a plan to achieve those goals. It's not a matter of we want to hand out buttons at the door. That's not the Bob's, you know what I mean? It's not it at all. It's but we as a group need to talk about what direction, how we want to be perceived, and then formulate a goal from it, and then task the superintendent.
Good, that's exactly, I think, my point too, yes.
But I would also add that we are in the community. We go to soccer games. We go to the village restaurant. So how do we interact with the community also? I think that's again the partnership and how do we load share? Yes.
Today, I sat in on the Leading with Emotional Intelligence in Uncertain Times, that webinar that was offered. It was from 12 to 1. There's going to be a follow-up for board members, and they were talking about having the need to include that in some of your goals, some of what's going to be approaching, how we open next year, what next year is going to look like. So we're going to want to leave some room, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, we're definitely going to need some extra support there too.
Can you repeat that, Tina?
Well,
Sure.
I sat in today, there was a webinar from 12 to 1 that was offered. It was Leading with Emotional Intelligence in Uncertain Times. It was presented by Yale, two gentlemen from Yale, indicating that 88% of teachers are feeling definite stress and anxiety in terms of returning to school and how they're going to balance and what's going to happen and what it's going to look like. I think as a board, that's going to be one of our areas of concern. You know, I want to be sure that we address that when we do meet, and I don't think May is any time too soon. You know, there's considerable work that we're going to need to do.
And I think we'll I do believe that Michael will have some real good ideas about all that.
Yeah. Yeah,
I got the impression, I got the impression from him that he is going to be quite assertive in dealing with some of these kinds of things,
Okay,
as
good.
far as giving us leadership and direction.
so, okay. I just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you very much for that. I think it's critical. And could you let us know when that second, the board seminar is?
Sure. I think we all get that notification
Okay.
through and,
Tina?
Yeah.
Did that come through NISBA?
yeah,
I was thinking that it came through NISBA.
I was on that today. I believe it was recorded, John.
it was.
So they may be able to
Yeah.
see the recording.
It was well done.
You were going to tell me, I guess, all you wanted to be sure that you were asking that you wanted community relations as part of the first getting together. Is that what I was hearing?
Yes, yes, please.
I'm thinking Michael is going to be part of deciding what we're going to do. I do believe Vicki was trying, her first goal is to get us together of what we're looking for and what Michael will be looking for. Trying to get some unity and team building for us. So I'll convey this all to her then. And we'll see what she has to say. Okay. So have we then discussed that last last 2 weeks ago meeting, we feel we have direction then? That we can leave this and move on?
Direction for the profession of community relations.
Pardon?
I don't follow you. Did we have direction for what the?
That we're going to be discussing these at the retreats.
Okay, starting the 22nd, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, all right. I'm gonna put a big check mark on that retreat.
Cinda,
Yes, John.
before I forget it, before our meeting, before we zoomed maybe people didn't hear it. I brought up that I was really encouraged in that we put up signs, yard signs, and acknowledging our seniors graduating. I think it was a great idea, and I think everyone on the board did too. We honor our seniors, we honor the people, the faculty who taught them, and they're being cheated out of graduation ceremonies. And I think it's what the community can do to recognize their hard work as well.
Yeah,
Before I forgot that, I had.
a real downer, isn't it, for kids?
It could be, yes.
Yeah,
And the teachers and the staff,
yeah, everybody.
you know.
I noticed there was a college graduation, I think it was, going on, and it was actually on Zoom, but the dean or whoever he was there on the stage in his robes, you know, and they were trying to do a kind of ceremony for the graduates. And I thought, you know, people are trying. It's just,
It's hard.
it's not the same.
But we expect, because we have a committee working on graduation and end of year for seniors, that we would have a report for you if we can for the next board meeting. Also, the superintendents, the regional superintendents are looking at various options so that we're in collaboration. One district isn't trying to do one thing while it extends beyond what another district is doing, so that at least we know what our neighbors are planning. So
Yeah.
again, we hope to have more information on what gathering might look like by the end of June later on, so that we know what kind of options we have.
Great idea.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Okay, next on my list for discussion, Paul, you had asked for a review of our school board goals for this year. And that you wanted to know if we were on track to accomplish them. Are you satisfied if we move that to when we're talking about our goals at the retreats?
Yeah, I mean, I can live with that. Again, it's already, what, May 12th, so we get the next meeting, right? It's gonna be pretty much budget presentation for the public. Correct, Scott?
Probably, yeah. Okay,
So, yeah, I think.
A portion, we're hoping that we don't need to have the entire meeting time taken up by that. It really is driven by the numbers of questions, since we'll have a brief presentation.
Well, thank you. So then, what do the rest of the board members think? I think it's not certainly too early to review our goals, or we could wait till the 22nd. We can wait till the following. Somebody else. I mean, I'm ready. I'm ready to review them, but what do the others think?
Yeah. Whenever everybody else is ready, I'm ready. It's the end of the school year is here, and I think that whenever they're ready, I'm ready.
okay. Isetta, I see you talking.
I think it's been a while.
What, Isetta? Would you
I
repeat?
think it's been,
What?
I think it's been a while since we've talked about what between now and the next meeting. We can maybe just send them in an email or something so we could review them
Okay,
and put our own minds what we want to bring up for where we stand at the next meeting.
mhm. Some goals, okay. Linda, Tina, John, do you have any input here?
I haven't thought about it.
I wasn't prepared to do that tonight, but
Yeah. I'm not prepared, but for the next meeting, I think it would give us all a focus.
yeah.
Okay, next meeting.
Yeah, time
And
permitting.
I can send those out to you, or Tina can, we'll get it out.
That would be good. Good idea, Isabella.
So
My memory is kind of vague.
can I go back to what Paul was saying, though, that on our website, there are 3 goals? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
Board is spelled wrong. In other words, the first goal was that we'd hire a new superintendent, right? And
but we'll
interim.
talk about it at the next meeting.
I know, but is that are those the
Those are
board
the
goals
ones, yes.
that we're gonna discuss? right?
Yeah,
Is that what you,
yes, and I think we also need not only the goals, but we should go over we agreed that our commitments were,
Agree.
okay?
okay, yep, mhm, yep,
Because we established commitments that we were committed to because they were not anything we as a board could achieve by ourselves. The 3 were for us to accomplish. That was the way it was left. Okay, moving on, my list. How are we doing with that? Okay, we're doing well. Jason, you had a question here for agenda. You said, looking back at Bob's 5-year plans, we've been presented a relatively small deficit for the last couple of years. We as a board have never discussed it or asked of our superintendent what we are doing to address this problem. I think we need to start discussing it before the budget presentations, but of course we missed that. But do you want to clarify what you were talking about, or do you feel that we talked about it during the budget ourselves, or?
No, actually, what I meant by that was I spent some time looking at how other districts prepare for their annual budget vote. And there's a few of them in our area that actually start in January. I won't go into a lot of details because we're putting it up for discussion. But there's a few that start in January and have really good systems set up as to where by the time April comes, it looks good, by reading their minutes anyway, it looks like they're ready to go. I just think that maybe we should look at the process of preparing for the budget and starting it earlier next year. And allot meeting dates for us to discuss it. You know, schedule that out a year in advance. We know that we don't have to ask for agenda items to be placed on the agenda for board discussion. We're going to allot that time in our workshop meetings to discuss that on these certain days.
I thought we did begin in January.
We did.
December? Did we begin in December with some of it? Where Bobby had it split apart with the different expenditures. Of course, he discussed the 5-year plan.
We generally, the first step is we review the 5-year plan. We kind of update projections. That generally happens in December, and then when we get into January, we start looking at the expenditure side.
So I think maybe the best way to frame that is, Jason, you have a relevant point in terms of wanting to make sure that what date it is that you want to discuss final numbers or that sort of thing, because the information that Bob is providing is building. So if the board established and said, we would like to have at least 2 meetings between from the time we hear projected final budget numbers to the time we're expected to vote, then Bob can build his schedule of how he wants to, or how best to share that information out, excuse me, leading up to that. I guess that's what my best suggestion for how to move forward with that.
I guess to clarify what I was saying, Lucinda, is we went from a budget committee that would meet regularly outside of, I say regularly, periodically, outside of a normal board meeting, where we are, as a board as a whole, we're presented information by the business administrator. I have to believe that I wasn't a part of the budget committee, but I would have to believe that they dig into it a little deeper during committee work than we do in our meetings. And all I was saying is maybe we set aside time to get our hands in it and dig into it so we understand it before it goes all night.
Well, I was on the budget committee back in the days, and we didn't, I don't know, we did what we did right with all of us. Bob would go over what anticipated expenditures were going to be based on numbers or needs. And that's what we all got as he went through the different areas of the budget. And that's what we heard. We did ask questions and come to an understanding of what was needed, either academically or through transportation or the different, there was instruction. Bob could give you all, but he did 1 or 2 a meeting that he presented and we discussed.
Cinda, can I add to that?
Sure.
Because I was on the separate committee for budget before, and I remember that a couple of years there was an opinion expressed in the whole board that there was a little bit of frustration about they didn't really know as much as the committee did, which is true because they were not there and they didn't get the presentation of all the parts as Bob is doing now. And, you know, that comment was made by more than one board member that, gee, it's nice to have that committee, that separate committee, but we don't have as much information as we could if it was the whole board. And I'm just saying that that's what happened, because the feeling was that maybe there were questions they would have liked to have asked, but they didn't have an opportunity to. And, you know, every board member brings something different to the board and may notice things or have different questions than just a few of the board members might in a smaller committee. So that was really what that's what influenced going to the whole board, getting the information firsthand rather than having the committee just make a report.
And then, of course, the revenue side of it was left for the end discussions because it was closer to when we were hoping to have a clear picture of what the state was going to do. That kind of fell apart, of course, with the virus coming in. Now what we get is, oh, we don't have any money at all at the state. So, Paul, you wanted to say something?
Yes, please. I think part of it is perhaps starting in January or even December, it would be helpful if we took a harder look at how we're doing with this year's expenditures with regard to this year's budget. I felt a little surprised when we started working on this budget that we were, I felt like we were already behind. And it came as a surprise to me. So that's what I'm saying is perhaps one of the things, and I do agree that we started in January, but maybe we should focus a little bit more on how we're doing right now as a projection of how we can do in the future.
In greater detail, is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, we get the treasurer's report, and honestly, I read that, but that doesn't always tell the whole picture. It's like, you know, how are we doing? Are we generally under budget, on budget, or are we exceeding our budget? And that was something that eluded me until all of a sudden we started getting into the details of this current budget process.
I see. I see. Mhm. If we were, Bob, do you have any, or Scott, any input on what our board concerns are and how you might handle that? I know Scott won't be here, but.
I've done budget many different ways over my time here. And to be honest, it's contingent upon how my board at the time and how my superintendent at the time wants to do it. I've done everything from having meetings once a week with a committee to doing the whole board twice a month to this year. I actually had the budget calendar set up to spend 2 meetings a month, and then I was requested back in November to change that budget calendar so that we only discussed it at our second meeting of the month. I can go whatever direction with that.
And the only suggestion I would have is to make sure that the full board gets the picture of the budget. While there could be a committee that helps advise if that was so chosen, I think that it's well worth the full board making sure that they hear all the ramifications like you did this year.
Yeah, I do. I feel strongly that the whole board needs to hear it all. When I first came on the board, I was not on the budget committee and I didn't have a clue what was going on. And as in the committee system, it is, well, you have to trust your committee. And it wasn't that I didn't trust them, it was that I wanted to know. And I wanted to be able to, if a community member questioned me on something, I wanted to be able to at least have some sort of an intelligent answer. Yeah, okay. Then again, it's a good discussion we're having, and I think as Bob just pointed out, Michael may have some input on this too, as to how we're going to proceed so that we're all on the same page. There may be something else to add to some of our discussions. I
Lucinda,
have somebody at my door. Hello?
Lucinda, before you go on, I just wanted to make sure you knew we have a couple of executive session topics.
Oh, that's right, we do. Okay, and then I wanted to do one more. Jason, you had some questions on the capital project. I think a lot of those questions were specifically answered and the whole board got them. Do you want to, were you satisfied with it, or do you want to continue this item for the carryover discussion?
I'd like to discuss it as a carryover or however we can do it. And maybe I overlooked it, but I didn't see an email with any of the that specifically addressed that question, and I wasn't looking for one at that point in time. So however,
maybe they weren't specific, but some of the things that came from Bob and from the campus report certainly did answer some of those questions.
certainly. Oh,
So let's carry it over so that we can get on to executive session.
okay.
Well, you're just to finish the capital project piece, we're planning to have the architect and construction manager report at the first meeting in June. That will give them time enough to get through this re-startup process and have a good idea, a better idea of timeframes and where we are at that point in time.
Yeah, okay.
All I was looking for was discussion amongst the board as to whether or not they see value in a more, we get a lot of information about the capital project, but the monthly updates that has a lot of information in it that I'm not too proud to say that I'm not fully functional in understanding what they're referring to. So all I'm saying is if the board would agree to have a discussion about possibly getting a monthly report or a bi-weekly report from our superintendent of the capital project as to some certain points and aspects of the project itself.
I have to interrupt. I think to discuss this any further, we must go to executive session. We're discussing.
John is right. That's right.
It's a personnel matter.
Okay.
Okay. Scott, you want to go into executive session for, what is our reason? Contractual or?
It's personnel related to a specific person.
Personnel issue related to a particular person. A motion to go into executive session to discuss a personnel issue related to a particular person. Motion, please.
Aye.
John and Izetta, okay. Any discussion?
How do we do that securely?
Well, we're in a minute after we approve it, I'm going to ask each one of you, are you alone? And then we'll discuss.
But how about the 14 who are visitors?
They will take it by.
I say, okay. I didn't know the technology.
And somehow or another, we've lost Jason, so I don't know whether he's going to executive session or not. But I need a motion. Oh, I had a motion, right?
Right.
John and I said, okay. Any more discussion? All in favor? John?
Yes.
John, Linda,
Yes,
Tina, Jason, Paul,
Yes.
Amanda,
Yes,
motion carried. We're now going to be going into executive session.